Okay everybody, today I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about using appositives and how they can improve your writing style and your writing level. Appositives are good for two things primarily. They, number one, reduce deadwood or eliminate unnecessary words or phrases in your writing which educated people understand and recognize. And number two, they will lead your writing to a higher readability, and I'll show you that in a second in the passage behind me. If you take a look at this passage behind me, 78 words, 10 sentences. I wrote this passage last week. It's very indicative of developing writers in that it's primarily simple sentence structure. We see this kind of writing with a lot of high school students coming into high school. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. Everything is capitalized. There are end marks. But beyond that, there's a better way to write it. And using appositives will lead to that better way of writing it. So I'll read the passage and we'll look at ways to make that better. Here is the passage. We just finished reading a book in one of my classes. It was called Speak. We read it in English class. It was about a freshman girl who struggles to come to terms with the traumatizing event that happens to her. The girl's name is Melinda. She has two good friends. One is named Rachel. The other is named Ivy. They at first shunned Melinda, and then they realize what happened to her, and she finally is able to speak. It's a great book by Laurie Anderson, in case you're interested. I may have one on the community library bookshelf, actually. 78 words, 10 sentences. Again, nothing inherently wrong with it, but educated people understand there's a way to write this better, more concisely, saying the same thing in fewer words, fewer sentences, without cutting out anything of essence. Now, to do that, I have to understand what a definition of an appositive is. And in its most simplistic form, an appositive is one word or more than one word that describes a noun, that gives information about a noun, that goes on to provide meaning to a noun. And that noun can come right before or right after it. So we do need to understand what a noun is, and most high school students can do that. So if we look through this passage, one thing we're going to notice, and you probably caught it as I read it, you're going to notice that I'm talking about something, a noun, in this case the book Speak, and then I go on to continue to discuss it or describe it. In this case, I go on to say we read it in English class. I go on to describe what it's about, and then I go on to describe another noun, Melinda. Okay? So when I'm continually describing or giving information about the same thing, and that's usually going to be a noun because that's the nature of the English language, that can tell me that that's my cue that maybe I can make it more concise. I can say that in fewer words and fewer sentences, cutting out the deadwood, and as an end product having fewer words, fewer sentences, and a higher readability. So I can tell that that's going to be the case because I'm talking about something, then I continue to describe it. So whenever that happens, as a writer, we have to ask ourselves, is there a better way to write it? And in this case, that answer is going to be by using appositives. So my initial passage here again is 78 words, 10 sentences. 78 words, 10 sentences. Now Microsoft Word has a program on it that will do a readability test. So if I go up to review, actually I'll highlight the passage I want to check for the readability level, and then I'll go up to review. I go to spelling and grammar. It's going to ask if I want to continue checking the selection. I'm going to click no here because beyond what I've just highlighted, I have a rewritten version and I don't want it to check that just yet. I'm just trying to find out what the readability level of this particular passage is. So I click no, and then there at the bottom it gives me what's called the Flesch-Kincaid grade level, right here. The Flesch-Kincaid grade level. And this is pretty good information to know. What Microsoft does, it uses a series of algorithms along with syllable counts, frequency of words, end marks, and other indicators that come up with what's called the Flesch-Kincaid grade level. And generally speaking, that's an indication of what grade level this piece is written at. And it's fairly accurate. Generally speaking, the longer the passage, the more accurate it is. There are ways to defeat it with short passages, but For now, we'll focus on this 2.8. That tells me that this passage, all simple sentence structure, is about a third grade reading level, which makes sense because it is, in fact, all simple sentence structure. Okay? So coming back to our initial definition of an appositive, a word or a group of words that helps describe, rename, or give information about a noun, let's take a look at what a rewrite might look like. And here you can see I've indicated the appositive phrases are in red. Okay, so I've taken my initial passage, I read it, and I realized there's a bunch of nouns in there, and I'm talking about those nouns continually. I've managed to take that initial passage, condense it down to 51 words in 3 sentences, 51 words in 3 sentences, meeting my definition of conciseness, and I did that with appositives. Okay, so the appositives here are in red. So if I reread the passage, it goes like this. We just finished reading a book, Speak, in English class. It was about a freshman girl, Melinda, who struggles to come to terms with the traumatizing event that happened to her. Melinda's 2 good friends, Rachel and Ivy, first shun her, but they then realize what happened and Melinda finally speaks. So I've cut it down to 51 words in 3 sentences. My appositive phrases are in red. What makes them an appositive? A word or a group of words, in this case, they're all names, that describe or provide a name to the noun that comes right before them. So speak is giving a name to the book, the noun that comes before it. Melinda is giving a name to the girl, the noun that precedes Melinda. Rachel and Ivy, our compound noun, are giving a name to the friends that, the noun friends, excuse me. So, the end result is we have not cut out anything of essence or anything of value. We have, in fact, made it more concise, but let's take a look at the readability, what Microsoft says about the readability. So again, we'll come up here, take a look at this. We'll go to review, spelling and grammar, click no. Readability is 8.1. Okay, the readability is 8.1. Now that's not necessarily a super high level, but keep in mind that not all passages, because of their length, are going to end up with a super high readability. The takeaway is that we did 2 very important things here. We made it more concise, which is good. Educated people understand that, they see that, they realize it, and we've improved the readability. In this case, 6 full grades, or almost 7 full grades. So that's some good stuff.